Before we begin, I'm trying to reach 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year to make all these special videos, so if you like the content here, please consider subscribing to help fulfill Project 10K. Thank you. Now on to the video. With nearly 2,000 different Cars Diecast released, there are bound to be some that collectors aren't a big fan of. But sometimes perception on an item changes over time. And sometimes hatred for an item grows not because of the item itself, but because of circumstances surrounding it. This is Gearsten Marshall, and this is how Mattel created a Cars Diecast that fans are sick of seeing. Hello everybody, and welcome back to yet another video, and to another discussion video here on the channel. Today we're going to be breaking down the story of Gearsten Marshall, a Cars Diecast that I'm sure many of you are very, very familiar with. This has become a pretty infamous item in several parts of the Cars collector community. People are getting really sick and tired of this item, claiming that it's everywhere, constantly being released, they keep finding it. So, what's the deal with Gearsten Marshall? Well, Gearsten Marshall is a character from the Cars on the Road episode Salt Fever. She appeared here in the episode. That's it. That's like the entirety of her screen time. This is the definition of an obscure character getting a piece of merchandise. Like many other background Cars characters, she was named after a Pixar employee, a woman by the name of Kirsten Marshall, and Gearsten would become the first new release of the 2023 Cars Diecast line, releasing in late 2022. When she first released, I think the reception on her was pretty positive. Personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of the character since she was so similar to Revo Koss, another Salt Flats car that we had just gotten in late 2022, but most people I knew were pretty happy to be seeing this item. Beyond the fact that it was a new Salt Flats racer, a very cool new type of car we were recently introduced to, Gearsten stood out for one prominent reason: her wheels. Every Salt Flats racer before Gearsten Marshall had these ugly white wheels representing the cars being covered in salt. Their wheels and bases were painted all in this off-white color, and a lot of fans and collectors really didn't like that, and were very happy to see that Gearsten here would be the first Salt Flats racer without white wheels. A trend that's actually continued with the other Salt Flat racers we've gotten after her, now Speedcone and the upcoming Byron Crashforth, who I believe also has black wheels. So that's definitely a positive for Gearsten Marshall here, and was one reason why people were very happy about this item. It meant that they were moving past something that collectors were not a big fan of. But then Gearsten started appearing more and more. Gearsten Marshall would first be released in 2023 Case B, and then her single would be re-released in several other cases throughout the year, a pretty common practice for new releases. She was in Case B as well as its half-count case. She was in Case D and its half-count case. She was in the half-count case of Case F, and in the full and half cases of Case H. So, if you look at that correctly, she was in every other wave for a little bit. B, D, F, H. Yeah, she wasn't in the full-size case of Case F for some reason, but, I mean, come on, this is 2023. Walmart stocks in half cases, and they were basically the only store getting new cars in 2023. So you were pretty likely to stumble upon a Gearsten. And speaking of Gearstens at Walmart, in around July of 2023, Gearsten would be released in a wave of Walmart exclusive accessory 2-packs alongside Nile Speedcone and several exclusive accessories. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this was actually the first time I saw a Nile Speedcone in store. My Walmarts didn't get her single wave in until a few weeks later, and if that was a common occurrence, then I wouldn't be surprised if several collectors picked up this 2-pack so that they could get Nile a bit early, thus giving them a second Gearsten Marshall. But then, in August of 2023, another 2-pack would release, this time in the main line and available wherever 2-packs are sold, once again featuring Gearsten Marshall, but this time pairing her up with Mark Sontheimer, a brand new release for 2023. So, what ended up happening was, of course, with Gearsten, a release from earlier on in the year, being released with Mark Sontheimer, a new release exclusive to the 2-pack, many collectors found themselves now with two Gearsten Marshalls, myself included, clearly. If you wanted Mark Sontheimer, well, too bad. You're gonna have to get a second Gearsten Marshall. This is why I've never been a big fan of Mattel releasing new releases from that year. also in 2-packs with other new releases. You just get duplicates pretty fast, and it could very well be a turnoff for other people who don't want to buy a car they already have in order to get one that they don't. So at this point, I'm sure several people probably had 2 Gearsten Marshalls, or 3 if you also got the Nile Speed Cone pack. So, you know, not common for a Cars character who doesn't have any voice lines, just appears super briefly in the background, is barely relevant. Not common at all for them to be released in 1 year in 3 different ways. But then it got worse, because then they decided to re-release Gearsten Marshall for 2024. Woo! So Gearsten came back to the main line early on once again in 2024. Gearsten was in Case A, which launched in November. She was then in Case B, E, H, and L. And she appears in the half-count cases for A, E, and H. So, once again, Gearsten is being released a lot. In 2024, she is in 5 separate single cases and 3 half-count single cases. 5 of them. That's 1 more case than she was in last year when she was a new release in terms of her single. She was in 2 different 2-pack cases and also the accessory 2-pack cases. But still, this is a lot of times to release a car that is pretty insignificant. Not to mention, Cars collectors have become kind of burnt out on Cars on the Road releases. I know a lot of people, myself included, that are a little tired of them. A lot of people have been a little burnt out on the very samey Salt Flats racers and other stuff like that. Distribution right now has been really, really bad. So Gearsten is just frequently showing up and peg warming. I haven't really seen Gearsten being that bad of a peg warmer compared to some other 2024 cars, but I do honestly see her pretty often. It, of course, just matters. It depends whether or not my stores have stocked in a wave that has her in it. If they have, she'll almost definitely just be hanging around on the pegs. This is how you turn collectors against you. Oversaturating a character that people didn't really care much for in the first place. I don't think anybody had super strong opinions on Gearsten. It was kind of an item that was just there, and like we liked it fine. But then, they re-released it several times in 2023, in 2 different 2-packs and a single several times. Then, they re-released it in 2024, and it's just kind of everywhere. And that's kind of it, quite frankly. This is how you make collectors stop liking your item. This is a pure example of oversaturation on an item collectors were probably lukewarm about in the first place, and it's just made people get really sick and tired of seeing Gearsten Marshall. I honestly think Mattel should take notes on things like this in the future. We don't need a character as insignificant as Gearsten Marshall being released all of these different ways. I think it's fine with main characters, but somebody like Gearsten, why? Why have we seen Gearsten so many times? But those are just my thoughts, and that's just my take and the story of Gearsten Marshall and how she's shown up everywhere. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Are you tired of seeing Gearsten Marshall? Are you the world's #1 Gearsten Marshall fan, and you wish that the entire Diecast line were her? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.